Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman in for Richard French once again tonight. We begin with the race for the White House, and Joe Biden has announced his running mate. It's California Senator Kamala Harris. From rivals to running mates, Joe Biden announcing he's picked Kamala Harris to join his ticket as the candidate for vice president. A Democrat from California, Harris is the only black female senator.
Women, especially older women, are going to be very drawn to having her as a part of this ticket.
The daughter of an East Indian mother and Jamaican father, Harris graduated from Howard University in Washington and earned her law degree at University of California, Hastings. She was the first African-American woman to be elected district attorney in San Francisco, the first woman and first African-American to serve as California's attorney general. Harris ran for the Democratic nomination but dropped out before the first votes were cast in 2020. During a debate last June, Harris launched an aggressive attack on Biden over his opposition to busing, and she made it personal.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Last month, photographers picked up notes that Biden had handwritten before a press conference. Under the header of Kamala Harris, it read, "Do not hold grudges. Campaigned with me and Jill. Talented. Great help to the campaign and great respect for her." Harris calls herself a progressive prosecutor, but she's faced fierce criticism for her record. With race and criminal justice dominating headlines this summer, Harris has been asked to address concerns from progressive activists that she can't be a change agent on policing. As a senator, Harris made headlines for her tough questioning, notably during the Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Have you ever discussed Special Counsel Mueller or his investigation with anyone?
Well, it's in the news every day.
It's a really specific question.
I would like to know the person you're thinking of.
Harris has been a leader on race issues, pushing to make lynching a federal crime and introducing legislation to make Juneteenth a national holiday. There's a lot to dissect and discuss over the Harris election, so let's bring in our first guest, Democratic strategist Jason Nichols. Jason, first of all, most people I think had two key criteria for whomever Biden picked. Has to help him win on Election Day and has to be ready to take office on day one. Does Harris meet those criteria? Was she the best fit on the short list?
I think she was. I'm not the biggest fan of Kamala Harris. I think that there are people that I would have chosen over her. But when you're checking boxes for Joe Biden, she makes a lot of sense. And she was somebody that was going to help him in ways that people that were on the short list would not. I would have been more in favor of someone like Karen Bass. But Karen Bass had issues that I think the right would have capitalized on, particularly in states like Florida, with some of the things about her traveling to Cuba as a 19-year-old kid, 47 years ago. But they would have capitalized on that, and that could have cost him an important state. I think that, Gretchen Whitmer was honestly, she's someone who is, not a woman of color, and people were looking for a woman of color because black women have been the strongest demographic for the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris checks all those boxes. She's someone who I think Joe Biden seems to get along with despite that little dust up during the debates. And I think she's a good choice for him.
And Biden's not going to have to introduce her to the American public. The American public knows who she is. She does come with some negatives. As we mentioned in the piece, her career as a prosecutor has raised questions about her ability to handle police and race issues. Her debate attacks on Biden, though he seems to have overlooked that. I'm going to add in her own ambition as well. It's easy to get a sense that Harris is all about Harris. Respond to those potential critiques.
Well, I think it's troubling whenever we start saying that a woman is too ambitious. I don't think that those criticisms really come as often to men. So I'm somebody who kind of dismisses this idea about ambition. I think we should be ambitious. One of the people that I actually really liked was Stacey Abrams, and she was criticized for her ambition as well. It seems like that seems to be lobbed at black women often. I think it's good that she's ambitious. It's good that she wants to reach the top. And, I think that she's motivated to do so. And I don't see anything wrong with that or that being a negative. What I do see being a negative are some of her criminal justice issues and the fact that she's not very organized. Her campaign failed because she couldn't raise money. Her campaign also failed and didn't even make it to her home state where she was coming in fourth. She doesn't really add anything to the electoral map. So I think that those are the more troubling issues going into this election, but not the fact that she's ambitious. I think, the issues that have to do with the election, the issues that have to do with her criminal justice past, I think there were things going on in California in her office when she was Attorney General that I think legitimately she was not aware of, like the Kevin Cooper case. But the fact that she was not aware of it is a problem. So I think, the fact that she's not shown that she can run an organization in an organized way is troubling, much more troubling than the fact that she has presidential ambitions like many politicians do.
Jason, will the party unite behind the pick of Harris as the VP? Will progressives find her palatable, the Bernie Warren wing, and will moderates find her too progressive?
I don't think moderates will find her too progressive. We still have to remember that Joe Biden is at the top of this ticket, and they have a 40 to 50-year history of Joe Biden. So I don't think they're going to be worried about Kamala Harris being too progressive. I also think that as far as progressives, I think that they will accept whoever runs against Trump. They realize what was going on in the border. They realize what was going on in Portland, and they want to get rid of this administration. Now, in 4 years, if Joe Biden doesn't run again, that's where it starts to get interesting. Because then, of course, being in New York, there's somebody who has risen to prominence, who is an inspirational and aspirational figure for many progressives, who will be 35 years of age by November of 2024. That could very well, if they actually go to a primary and Joe Biden doesn't run, that could actually, capture the imagination of the party and particularly of progressives and split the party up again. So that is a scenario that I find interesting. But I think that people for this election are locked in. They see what's happened since COVID-19. They've been in their houses. Many people have gotten sick. People have lost family members, and they're ready to get this current administration out.
Jason, I apologize in advance for the nature of this question, but is the presence of a black woman on the ticket, particularly this black woman, enough to answer concerns about black voter turnout?
Well, this is one of the things that I find a little bit troubling about this pick and the way that they've ignored other candidates or other, potential running mates. I don't think that Kamala Harris is an inspirational figure for many black people, particularly working class black people. I think that people who are going to vote and feel inspired by Kamala Harris are probably conscientious voters, people who've been voting in local elections and in national elections. They're generally educated African Americans. They're made in the model of Kamala Harris. She's not somebody who inspires some person who has never voted before in Florida, some African American or Latino that's never voted before, some person in rural Mississippi who's never voted before. She's not that person, or in Georgia that's actually on the line in this election. So I don't think, even though she's African American, I think African Americans are much more sophisticated voters than people give them credit for. They're voting on issues. They're not voting on color. And in my state, we've seen that several times. We've had many qualified and big name conservatives run for offices, and African Americans end up voting for an old white guy because they agree with them more politically. So I don't think that this necessarily is going to drive big turnout from African Americans. But had Joe Biden chosen somebody who was not an African American woman, you would have seen even some of those conscientious voters stay home. So it was a safe pick. I think that turnout is going to be very interesting with COVID. So it'll be interesting to see if you actually get some of these new voters to turn out.
Should Biden roll out more than just his VP pick this week? There have been we've seen travel reports or reports of travel from other candidates and people who are on the VP shortlist. Should he be announcing, hey, I think this person would be a good Secretary of State and this person would be, or is it just enough to just start with Harris and go one piece at a time?
I think he should start one piece at a time, give people a chance to be excited about the Harris pick, and then you can start to roll things out and at least give hints about who you will select. I think, I'm pretty, I've been saying that he was going to choose Kamala Harris way back because Jim Clyburn, who he owes his nomination to, and many members of the Congressional Black Caucus have been calling for Kamala Harris from the very beginning. So I've said that this thing was over before it started. We all knew where he was going to go with this. I think Susan Rice will be a great Secretary of State. I think he will choose her as Secretary of State because she already has the relationships. If she walks into an office, there are many people who across the world, particularly our allies, who are troubled by this administration. If they see Susan Rice walk in, if Angela Merkel sees Susan Rice walk in, she's going to feel very much comforted by that, as opposed to, Pompeo and, Trump. So I think that you'll see some of these stars that have arisen, whether it's Susan Rice, whether it's Pete Buttigieg, you're going to see those people reappear. But I don't think he needs to roll them out right now. Allow people to be excited about the full ticket and, let things kind of progress from there.
Democratic strategist Jason Nichols. Jason, as always, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.
With the race now set, Trump and Pence versus Harris or Biden and Harris, I should say. Let's reset this race. Election day is now just 84 days away, and the president is still trailing the former VP. And by the way, today is also primary day in Connecticut, Vermont, and Minnesota. Despite the numbers, Donald Trump still sounds pretty confident.
I don't know if you've seen, the polls have been going up like a rocket ship. Hey, George Washington would have had a hard time beating me before the plague came in, before the China plague. And then, like every other nation, like other countries, when you get hit, it affects you. And we went down a little bit.
George Washington never told a lie. Not sure which poll the president is looking at. The 538 polling averages show Joe Biden holding an 8-point lead. And when you look at some of the most competitive swing states, the former VP is also more than holding his own. Here are Biden's slimmest polling lead states. 538 has Biden up by a fraction in Ohio and also topping the president in North Carolina and Arizona. Trump's thinnest leads are in Iowa, Texas, and Georgia. So this race continues to pivot on traditionally red states. That's good news for Biden, bad news for Trump. The Democratic National Convention kicks off on Monday now that we have a VP nominee, and the lineups have been announced. First night features Bernie Sanders, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, former Republican Ohio Governor John Kasich, and Michelle Obama. On Tuesday, we get former acting Attorney General Sally Yates, Senator Chuck Schumer, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bill Clinton, and Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden. On Wednesday, it's House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Barack Obama, and Kamala Harris accepting the VP nomination. On the final night, Joe Biden will deliver his nominating speech. His warm-up acts will include Senator Cory Booker and Pete Buttigieg. Well, we are going to take our first break here. Up next, we pivot from the election to the number one issue, to the COVID outbreak. And we're going to speak with the head of the largest teachers union about her concerns over sending kids and staffers back to the classrooms.